Elite Wages. I am your host, Elite Wages, and this is the first episode of the Premier League season. As you all know, the Premier League is back on August the 15th, so we've got a few weeks to sort of break down the league, break down all these different teams and players and things like that. So this is going to be the episode that I break down each team within the Premier League, giving my sort of analysis. I've gone deep into each team, and I'll give you a little bit of a prediction on where I think they will finish this season. I've gone into stats like things from last season, where things they did right, things they did wrong, where they need to improve, transfer targets, all that, transfer movement and things like that that's going on at the moment. So I've gone fully in depth into each team, and this is the episode that I will share my thoughts and opinions on each team. Just a little bit of a background on what's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. I've got this episode, as I said, breaking down each team within the Premier League, giving my predictions and things like that. So this is ideal for, if on the betting side of the Premier League, who I believe is going to, top the league and who's going to be relegated and where everyone's going to finish. It's also going to be quite good for fantasy, who I believe are going to be the top teams to sort of target for fantasy, things like that. And then I've got another episode coming next week, which will be my future bets, and then we're going to touch on fantasy football again next week, and then the week after that is going to be a full episode on the fantasy season long game, which is just gone live over on fantasy on Fanteam. As you can see there, fantasy season long game. I'll just give you a quick little preview on how it looks. It looks clean. A little bit of a teaser on player prices as well. So it's a 15 player market. You have to pick your starting 11, and then you get 4 subs, and you get 100 mil. I've had a little go already, and it's really difficult, which makes it really, really fun. So we'll touch on that in next week, and then have a main episode the week after. But yeah, like I said, this week is breaking down each team. I'm going to go through each team individually. And yeah, let's get started, and let's get started with Arsenal. Go down in alphabetical order. So Arsenal, they finished last season in second place in the Premier League. Actually, wait, I'll say how this is going to work. So I'm going to go through things like last season's placement in all competitions, all the cups and things like that. I'll go through a little bit about squad news, so who's come into the club and who's come out of the club. I'll go through some sort of key stats from last season, what they did well, what they need to improve on, and then I'll give my sort of 2025-26 prediction. Basically, what they need to improve, what they need to continue to do, what they need to do different, and things like that. So yeah, we're going to start with Arsenal. Second in the Premier League last season. Third round of the FA Cup they were knocked out in. They got to the semi-final of the EFL Cup and the Champions League, so they did fairly well in those two cups. But second place in the Premier League, fairly successful season in terms of placements for Arsenal. But obviously couldn't quite get over the line in terms of winning. A bit of squad news. So they've got a few players coming in. So they did sign Zubimendi. They signed Norgard from Brentford as well. They got Kepa and Madueke as well. So 4 new signings so far. On the departures list, they do have Thomas Partey, Jorginho, and Tierney as well, who are left on. Well, they were all released, contracts terminated. So they have sort of improved a little bit in terms of their squad depth, bringing in 4 players to 3 players, or 3 main players leaving. A few stats from last season. They actually had the best defensive record in the Premier League. They conceded 34. Let's go on to the defensive side. They conceded just 34 goals in the Premier League. They finished with the best defence in the league for 2 years straight. Their attacking side, they were, they improved on the season prior. They weren't as prolific as Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool topped the league. They scored 69 goals there, averaged 14 shots per game, and obviously that's a main. Arsenal couldn't sort of compete with Liverpool. They couldn't keep up with Liverpool in terms of their goal scoring abilities, and that was obviously mainly down to a few injuries to their main strikers. So you had Gabriel Jesus, who was out, and Kai Havertz. And actually, when you look down the list here, Kai Havertz was actually their top goal scorer, and he was out for 3 months as well, that's the clear issue for Arsenal from last season. Arsenal only lost 4 games last season. But they did have 14 draws, which obviously, again, is a problem that highlighted a tendency to draw and dropping points in games that they could and should have won. They actually dropped 21 points from winning positions, which is more than any other team in the league. And then they finished runners-up in the Premier League for the 3rd consecutive season. And they've actually only won one trophy in the last 10 years, which is also an issue. That's what they're gunning for. And they just sort of can't get over the line. In terms of what they've been able to do in the off season and what I believe they can do in the next season upcoming, they've sort of solidified themselves as a team to watch, and obviously a team to contend for the title, make another deeper run into the Champions League maybe. But in terms of their characteristics, they do like to attack down the wings. They sort of play in like a bit of a block where they have 3 midfielders defending that back 4. And as you can see here, the strengths, attacking down the wings, which is mainly down with Saka. Saka's their main guy, and they do finish a lot of scoring opportunities as well. Their style of play, they like to control the game in the opposition half. I'll show you that heat map in a minute. Attacking down the right, as I said, with Saka. Short tiki-taka passes, no sort of long balls over the top, and they do like to play possession football. You can see that with this heat map I've got up here. Well, not a heat map, but so they do like to attack on the right side 43% of the time. Saka obviously is their main guy. They like to get him involved as much as possible. Open play goals, they scored 41 goals, which is 59%, which again comes down to sort of their tiki-taka passing style. And the way they like to play in the final 2/3 of the pitch, so middle third and the opposition third, taking up a chunk of their possession stats. And then again, you can see where they've had shots as well. So, well over 70% have been inside the box for Arsenal. Don't know how it's called. So yeah, 70% inside the box for Arsenal in terms of their shots. So yeah, they do like to sort of pass the ball into the net in effect, which again is worked for them so far in the last few seasons. So I can't see that changing too much. Obviously, like I said, they made additions in key areas, boosting their midfield. Again, they like to have a lot of the ball there, 40% in the midfield, in the midfield third, and obviously bringing in Zubimendi and Norgard, that can obviously help them solidify that area again. They added Madueke as well, and that's probably to get this side up a little bit more in terms of their usage. Obviously, going through Saka every time is a little bit predictable. It can be read quite well. So you got a Madueke, and you can oppose him and go on the other side. They tried with Sterling last year, didn't work out. Madueke comes in, he will play on that left side. They are actually in talks to sign an out-and-out number 9 to help their lack of goals. Obviously, like I said, Kai Havertz 9 goals, but he was injured for 3 months, and that's a really big issue. Having your top goal scorer be your top goal scorer, and he was out for 3 months. They are in talks to sign Gyökeres, who scored 54 goals last year for Sporting, which will be obviously ideal. In my opinion, they ideally need to add a few more players to create a little bit of depth. Last season's major struggle was injuries, especially in that attacking area, and obviously that was due to having a longer season, obviously with the Champions League and the domestic cups and things like that. And then I believe Arsenal will again be in the title race. Alongside Liverpool and Man City, they're the sort of three that always sort of rotate the wins and things like that. They obviously will be their closest rivals in the title race, but ultimately the lack of goals may haunt them again. The talks with Gyökeres is stalling a little bit. Obviously there's a few targets, but I think by the time they actually get that in, it might be a little bit too late. They might be coming into the winter period where they don't have an out-and-out number 9, and I think that's gonna haunt them a little bit. And I think they actually finished third this year. I think they finished behind Liverpool and Man City. So third place for Arsenal, but done a fairly good job to keep contending within the Premier League this year. Last season they placed in 6th place. They were just 2 points off 4th place, so very, very close at the top of that Premier League last season. They finished in the 4th round of the FA Cup and the EFL Cup. And then in the Champions League last year, they finished in the quarter-final. They were knocked out by PSG. In terms of their squad depth and things, no one notable has signed, no one notable has left, which is a fairly good thing considering they wanted to try and keep that core together of Watkins, Rodgers, John McGinn, Tielemans, all those in together. 2 departures, Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio, both left on loan. Both gone home on loan, if that makes sense. But in terms of their stats from last season, if I was a Villa fan, I'd be very, very happy with how last season panned out. Obviously disappointing to end with no Champions League football. Obviously disappointing not to go further in the Champions League either. But they do have Europa League football next year, and that should give them a better chance. A better chance at silverware in Europe for the first time since 1982. At home last year, they played very, very well. 34 goals in 19 games at home. 11 wins, only 1 loss. That actually accounted for 40 points at Villa Park. And they did have a home run that stretched, 18 matches unbeaten at home last season. Away form, more inconsistent, 8 home wins, and only 26 points on the road as well, which you can see there the goals dropped a little bit, 24 away from home. Their 2 main guys last year, Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rodgers. As you can see there, 18 goal contributions for Rodgers and 24 for Ollie Watkins. They actually had 31 and 29 respectively in all competitions for the 2 of them. So they were really, really crucial for this team last year. And then in terms of their characteristics and how they like to play, set pieces were huge for them last year. They scored heavily from dead ball situations. They ranked 3rd in the Premier League for set piece goals, scoring 15 or more. And defending set pieces as well. So anything set piece, they sort of played very, very well. They sort of set up. Emery set them up in a sort of very sort of mid-block kind of style play. They like to attempt short passes through the middle. Obviously, balls into sort of Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rodgers were the main areas that they like to use. That was their avenue they like to use, and I think they'll stick to that next year. Keeping Tielemans and John McGinn obviously crucial for that. As you can see here, pretty split between where they like to spread the ball. And obviously they like to play as a 4-3-3 mainly, and obviously that sort of coincides with that. They like to spread it across the side, not just play through the middle. Their action zone obviously possession based, so passing from the back into the midfield and then only going into the opposition third when they are ready to sort of attack the goal. And as you can see there, 70% of goals scored, of shots, were inside the box, and again 65% were through the middle. So that was the sort of style of play that they implemented last season, and I think they'll stick to that this year. But I think at a minimum, the requirement for next season is going to be to at least duplicate what they were able to do last season. Making a deeper run into the Europa League will be a bonus. Making the top 6 of the Premier League again, maybe even adding a few better performances in domestic cups. I think a key factor to their success is Emery's leadership and what he sort of implemented into the team. So this style of play, in terms of how they attack the game, how they spread the ball around and things like that, and how they like to play through the middle more, and then obviously get the shots on target through the middle of the goal in the box. I think that obviously helped them a lot with having a very, very good striker in Ollie Watkins. They do, however, need to complete some signings. Obviously, for depth, their goalkeeper as well, Emi Martinez, is, it's a bit of a grey area. He is sort of a free agent, but he is sticking around Aston Villa at the moment. So they will potentially need a new goalkeeper, and they will need some sort of creativity in those wide positions, with Asensio and Rashford leaving after their loan deals expired. But I think they can get a few signings done before the season starts, and I think with a few solid signings, they should be better than last year. But I think without solid signings, they may struggle to replicate last season's success. But I do believe Villa will continue to be, a gritty team. They're a very gritty team. They like to get down and dirty, and they've kept main core of players. So I actually think they will finish in 6th place again for back-to-back seasons, and I think they will qualify for Europe again. Okay, so moving on to the next team, Bournemouth. They actually had a relatively decent season last season. They finished 9th in the Premier League, just shy of the final European spots. Quarter-final of the FA Cup, which is fairly good for a team of Bournemouth's calibre as well. Disappointing to be knocked out in the second round of the EFL Cup. In terms of their transfers, they've only signed one player, and that is Truffert so far, the French player, who will replace the departure of Kirkez, who's gone to Liverpool. Kepa has also gone, and Huijsen as well, also gone to Real Madrid. So there's 3 major parts of their defence from last year that have now departed. Obviously replaced only one so far. But last year they managed to play like a high energy, aggressive, attacking play style. The season last year was historic for themselves. Best ever points finish with 56 points. Top half finish obviously as well, finishing 9th, and had some really standout wins against some elite clubs, while also bringing up some decent players from their youth system as well. Defensively, they only 5 teams conceded less goals than Bournemouth. Obviously, defensively solid showing with their really good and young defence. Attackers, they were among some of the best. Looking at Semenyo there, 11 goals, 5 assists. You've got Kluivert as well, 12 goals, 6 assists. Sharing the most across all competitions between the two of them. Obviously, you add in Evanilson as well, who's somewhere on this list. Have I gone past him? Evanilson there, 10 goals, 1 assist as well. So those 3 between them, have a lot of goals in the attacking area of the field. In my opinion, for next season, it's going to be very, very tough to replicate what they were able to do last year, especially with their losses on defence. They signed Truffert as a replacement for Kirkez. I think they have now signed Petrovic as well as Kepa's replacement, which is a good replacement from Chelsea. They do need to sign a solid centre back to replace Huijsen, and obviously a few more players for depth as well. Keeping Semenyo and Kluivert is also key, obviously, and Evanilson. All 3 have been somewhat, in talks. Well, speculation, potentially moving away. But time will tell how this new look offence and defence will look. But it may be difficult to better last season. Obviously, as you can see, their left side is the most used side. That's Kluivert's side. But they do have a lot of their action zones in the final 2/3 of the field, which is a good way for them, and how they played a lot of the time last year. And looking at shots as well, they get the ball into Evanilson a lot, and Semenyo as well. Semenyo coming in from the centre attacking midfielder position as well, to get 67% of shots inside the box. But it's just going to be difficult for them to sort of replicate what they did last year with the defence lacking a little bit. Defensively here, as I said, they're one of the best defensive teams in terms of goals conceded. You see there as well, shots per game allowed, tackles per game 18, which is in the highest of the league as well. So they do have a lot of potential, but it all depends on how they overcome those losses on defense. And I do believe they manage a top half finish, but I think they finish in. Okay, so moving on to the next team, which is Brentford. Last season, another team had a relatively decent season. They themselves finished in 10th in the Premier League. Like Bournemouth, they were also in the quarterfinals of the domestic cup in the EPL Cup, but they did get knocked out in the third round of the FA Cup. In terms of their transactions this year, Henderson is in, so they brought a veteran face. Henderson coming in, Kelleher also coming in goal, and obviously there's huge talks about Mbemo leaving, but as of now he is still a Brentford player. In terms of their outgoings, Norgard has left, Flecken also left, and Ben Mee also got released as well. So you could essentially say Henderson comes in for Norgard, Kelleher for Flecken, so it's a like-for-like situation in terms of those transactions. Looking at last season, the thing that stands out to me there most is the 66 goals that they scored. So they had a strong mid-table finish, comfortably clear of relegation. They actually collected 56 points, and they had a huge winning record of 16 wins, 14 losses, 8 draws, nearly flawless at home as well. Scoring 40 goals at home, just one draw in the first 9 games for them. So a huge result at home for Brentford allowed them to finish in the top half of the league. They actually had a club, going back to 66 goals, a club record 66 Premier League goals, joint 5th in the league. Only Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool outscored Brentford. In terms of their efficiency, you can see there creating chances, aerial duels. Coming back from losing positions is also a huge strength that they had last year, and finishing those scoring chances. Talking about those scoring chances, they had the best shot on target rate in the league with 40%, and they had a high expected goals efficiency. Looking up to their top players from last year, Brian Mbemo, 20 goals, 7 assists, absolutely huge for them last year. Wissa, 19 goals, 4 assists. Sade there, 11 goals, 2 assists, and then you look up to Damsgaard as well, 10 assists for himself. So they had 4 key contributors in the final end of the field, which obviously powered their attack. But while the attack was solid, the defence was not as good. You can see there, a lot of the time they have a lot of weaknesses defending against the wings, stopping creating chances, which was a huge one. 57 goals conceded ranks them in the bottom 6 for goals conceded. Flecken obviously had a very, very good season in terms of his fantasy output last year. He played almost every game, but he actually led the league in shots saved as well. But obviously the amount of shots that he faced, it wasn't a good thing for Brentford. It showcased how often they allowed shots on goal. Can we check the defense? No, we can't. So yeah, it allowed a lot of shots on target. My prediction for this year, apart from the obvious losses, Flecken departing, they have brought in Kelleher, Norgard out to Arsenal, obviously bringing in Jordan Henderson. Frank's departure as well, the manager, that should be a huge impact for them. Him leaving to Spurs also impacts the squad, with him taking most of his backroom staff as well to London. Mbemo, obviously heavily linked to Man United, looks like it will eventually go through. That's going to be a huge loss and creates a huge dent in their 2025-26 campaign. Obviously scored, 29 goals I think he scored, goal contributions he had, so that'll be a huge dent in their chances this year. They do need to boost their squad a little bit more. Obviously they've got like for like transactions so far. Obviously, Kelleher for Flecker, Norgard, and Henderson basically replacing each other. They do need more, especially if Mbemo goes. They will have the funds. They need to go and pursue some heavy action players. Wissa is obviously also potentially going to Spurs. He's heavily linked to Spurs. If they lose these two players, it will drastically slide down the league. But looking at the way they played last year, their wing play. So you had Mbemo playing on one side and Wissa virtually playing off the striker in this area as well. So their attacking sides were through the wing. Midfield didn't really tend to do much. And that actually shows in their action zones. They spent almost all their time defending their own third. Mid press in the middle third. But to see the action zones being, over 70% here in the first 2/3 is not a very good look for them this year. I think if they lose Mbemo and Wissa or Wissa, they're going to hugely struggle. 66 goals last year, with two main contributors leaving, is going to obviously drastically decrease their chances of a top half finish. With Frank gone, obviously 39 goals, so 39 of their 66 goals last year could potentially be leaving. Like I said, Frank leaving, I see them struggling under a new rookie manager as well. I think it's the set piece manager the set piece coach who's now their manager. I just think they struggle all around, especially on attack. Obviously their defense wasn't very solid anyway. I don't believe they managed to replicate last season's fairly decent results. I actually see Brentford sliding down, and I have them finishing in 13th place. So I haven't finished it sliding quite far down, but I don't think they can replicate what they did. Okay, so the next team, Brighton. So these three, Brighton, Bournemouth and Brentford, all did very, very well last year, finishing sort of mid-table. Brighton ended up in 8th place. Reached the quarterfinal of the FA Cup and the 4th round of the EPL Cup. So again, those three teams sort of doing very similarly in terms of their league positions. In terms of squad news, the obvious one, João Pedro to Chelsea. They did sign De Kuiper and Costalus. I think that's how you pronounce them. Probably not. But they signed those two to sort of inject a bit of creativity after João Pedro moves on. But in terms of last season's performances, they played some really, really solid football. A lot of strengths in this column here. Exceeded last season's pre-season prediction. They played very well at home. That obviously gave them a huge boost in their league standings. They got 16 wins in total, 13 draws, 9 losses. Their home results, 8 wins, 8 draws, 3 losses. Did slip a little bit on the away form, 8 wins, 5 draws, 6 losses. So that does need to be improved. They managed to score a fair amount of goals. Again, another team with 66 goals. Only 4 teams scored more. And again, they were the same. Only 5 teams, sorry. They were the same teams. Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool. Again, that averages out to, I think it's 1.7 per game. They did struggle defensively. Conceded 59 goals. And that averages out to 1.5 per game. So they did. That obviously is another reason why they weren't able to keep the wins in the column. Obviously conceding quite a lot of goals. Matoma, João Pedro, who else? Danny Welbeck. All scored 10 goals each. So Danny Welbeck, João Pedro, Matoma, all were combining for 30 goals last season. Struggled with. They did have a lot of injuries. I've got this note down. Struggled with injuries, especially on defense. 5 of their main defenders all missed time. And again, that's another reason why they weren't able to grab a lot of wins. But this guy here, Paul Van Heck, he was their key defensive anchor. He missed just 4 games in the season. And when he was absent, so in those 4 games, Brighton conceded 10 goals. So he was a main part of their defensive structure, and obviously showcased when he was out. They conceded, over 2 goals per game. In the matches he did play, he kept 10 clean sheets. So again, the pros of having him in the team were massive. They have a solid young core. They played 21 or younger players with 21 or younger. They logged 9,000 total Prem minutes, so that's one of the best in the Premier League for the young players. As you can see here, very, very good at set piece chances. So, like I said, free kicks, corners, things like that. Individual skill players as well. So again, it goes back to Matoma, João Pedro, things like that. For next season, while they played a lot of younger players, they also played 143 different starting 11 combinations, which is the third most. So that does create a little bit of instability within the team. Obviously, João Pedro being moved on is a huge loss. Danny Welbeck can fill the void. He played well in Pedro's absences last year when he was injured or suspended. He obviously got 11 goals all competitions with a few assists as well. No European football is a boost for Brighton. Squad rotation will be a lot easier to keep players healthy, longer rest periods, and obviously extra preparations for games. Looking at their sort of the way they like to play last year, they like to try and keep the ball within this midfield area. And again, I think that's going to be highlighted again this year with the signing of De Kuyper. He's a centre midfielder, and he's one of those holding kind of midfielders who likes to try and dictate the play of the game. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him on the ball a lot in this area, and using the opposition third for the likes of Matoma, Danny Welbeck, anyone else they sort of get in those wide areas. But I think it's going to be a tough ask to get them in the top 8 again for Brighton. With Pedro moving on, a little bit of a shuffle around on defence as well. Obviously, like I said, 143 different starting 11 combinations. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries on that defensive line. Keeping Van Heck in that area will be key for them. But, no sort of real stars signing. I think I struggle to see an improved team. And obviously, with João Pedro losing, that's a huge loss. Unfortunately, I believe they do drop down. I actually think they finished 12th this season. Okay, so the first of the newly promoted teams, and that's going to be Burnley. I'm actually really excited about this Burnley team. They managed to finish second in the English Championship last year, which clinched automatic promotion. They got to the 5th round of the FA Cup and an early exit in the EFL Cup in the 2nd round. Squad news. In terms of their departures, at the moment, no notable departures. There is huge talk of their goalkeeper, who I can't see on this list, their goalkeeper on the move. So Matt Trafford is supposedly on the move and I think gone to Newcastle. I'm not too sure, but at the moment he is still a Burnley player. In terms of their additions, they've got some very, very good additions in my opinion. So they've got Twenzebe at centre-back, Larson up front, Marcus Edwards, who they re-signed, made him a permanent move. I couldn't get my words out. Made him a permanent transfer from his loan move, and then they've also got Kyle Walker at right back as well. So obviously an unbelievable season last year, unbeaten through 33 league games. That included an undefeated home record. First time they've done that since 2009. They collected 49 away points as well, which is the highest in Championship history. So they had a real historical season last year. Defensively brilliant. Let's go back up here for a second. Defensively brilliant. Conceded 16 in 46 games. That's an average of 0.3 per match. That's a new English league record. 30 total clean sheets, and they had a streak of 12 games where they conceded no goals, so 12 clean sheets in a row, which is obviously historical as well. Sticking to their defense, we'll just skip back to the offense there. 69 goals scored, which is obviously a high amount of goals. But defensively, James Trafford. So I think I said Matt Trafford before. James Trafford, absolutely, amazing. Started 45 games, 29 clean sheets, including 12 consecutive games with a clean sheet, along with an 84.8 save rate. Obviously, his dominance was a huge reason why they did so well. There he is there, James Trafford. Moving on to their sort of attacking side of the ball, Josh Brownhill here. He is a midfielder. But as you can see there, 18 goals, 6 assists. A huge contributor for their goals. And he actually scored a brace in the promotion clinching win over Sheffield United as well. So he's their kind of talisman in the midfield, and he is also the captain. But Scott Parker took over this team. He emphasised a defensive strategy on the team. You can see that down here. Very good at defending set pieces. But he implemented that defensive strategy into the game. That obviously led to dominance, and obviously you can see 43% that they kept the ball in the midfield third, showcasing that they tried to defend their own third as much as possible. Obviously they broke a lot of records in their dominance. Fewest goals conceded in any English season was 16 in 46 games. First team to never concede more than 1 goal per game as well, which is obviously a huge start in itself. They added some solid players in the off-season for their starting rotation. Obviously, squad depth was their main area they wanted to improve on. Obviously, coming up to the Premier League is going to be a huge, a really physical and mentally different kind of league. Adding Kyle Walker, in my opinion, is a huge addition. Permanently signing Marcus Edwards as well is obviously very, very good considering what he was able to do last year. Let's have a look at his goal contributions here. Where's Marcus Edwards? Marcus Edwards, there you are. 1 goal, 1 assist. That doesn't include obviously his permanent move, but so adding Larson in their attack as well is obviously a good thing. He played very well in their team last year, and obviously made that move permanent. They've been focused on a defensive play style to navigate the Championship, but obviously in the Premier League it's a lot more physical and mental. They are going to need to score some goals, so adding Larson's obviously a little bit of a boost in the attacking area, but whether or not they can create as many goals as they did last year is going to be something to watch. Obviously a lot of wing play used for this team as well, so Edwards will fit in that role, moving from Sporting on a permanent move. In my opinion, I think they're the better of the 3 newly promoted sides. I believe they are going to finish than both Leeds and Sunderland. I also believe they will be able to navigate themselves out of the relegation zone. I think they're going to be very competitive against a lot of the bottom sort of ranked teams. I actually think they stay up in the Premier League next year, and I think they finish in 16th. Okay, moving on to the current world champions, which sounds very weird to say. Chelsea last year finished 4th in the Premier League. They were knocked out early in the FA Cup and the EFL Cup in the 4th round. Europa Conference League winners, and then also Club World Cup winners. So a very good off-season for Chelsea, especially when you look at their squad depth. They've got an absolute mass amount of players, which is obviously it's a joke how many players they've got. Estavo coming in from Palmeiras, Liam Delap, João Pedro. They've got Gittins. They've got a fair few players coming in. They are the most notable ones. Their departures, Madueke and Kepa, both departing. Last season played fairly well. 64 goals scored. It was a successful season for Chelsea. Secured Champions League football. They won a European trophy, and they beat PSG to be crowned world champions as well. So you could say it's a very successful season for Chelsea. Defensive improvement as well. They conceded only 44 goals. There's some stats there. conceded 44 goals, 20 fewer than the previous season. They ranked the third best team for goals conceded. They scored 64, down from 77 under Pochettino last year. But again, that still got them in the top 4, which is a good thing. But, the new manager, Maresca, showcases that he was emphasising a defensive strategy over attacking prowess, if you like. As I said, very, very good squad depth. You've got 29 players on the books there, and that's not including their loan players out. They sort of had a good core of players that gelled together the more the season went on, and obviously, as you can see that in the Club World Cup as well. Standout players obviously include Cole Palmer, 15 goals, 8 assists. He's the fastest Chelsea player to 50 Premier League goals as well, goal contributions as well. Multiple hat-tricks, Conference League standout as well. He scored a brace in the Club World Cup final too. Obviously, as you can see there, Nicholas Jackson, 10 goals. There's a lot of players here with a fair amount of assists as well. So the goal contributions are quite coming from a lot of different angles. Caicedo was crucial for Chelsea in their midfield, obviously with partners with Enzo Fernandez. Those two there played very, very well together. They dominate the midfield, and Caicedo ended the season with the most minutes, most tackles, and the most interceptions for a Chelsea player. My prediction for next season, obviously, as you can see there, free kicks with Reece James, long shot opportunities as well with Cole Palmer, and individual skill and flair and things like that. That comes from their wider areas. My prediction for next year, I think the additions of Delap and Pedro and Gittins and Estavo, obviously Estavo won't play as much, but they will boost the team. Delap and Pedro sort of proved they can improve this team with their goal scoring. Both goal scorers combined for 7 goals goal contributions in the Club World Cup. And obviously they only played a handful of games with the rest of the team. They definitely They definitely addressed those attacking issues. They signed an out-and-out number 9 in Delap. And obviously Pedro should complement him as well. He can play wide, he can play as a false 9, he can play in the number 10, so he can be moved around. And ideally they need to sort of find a way to start both of those with Cole Palmer. Add in wide players as well with Gittins, and again Pedro can play wide. Their usage, it's pretty even across the whole board, and that's mainly down to the fact they've got Cole Palmer who can drift inside. You'll have João Pedro now who can drift inside, so the wing play might not be as strong for Chelsea, as obviously they can all rotate across that line. They have obviously built depth in their team, and obviously emphasising this part here, the middle third, most possession with Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, who like to dominate this area. As you can see there, 42%. Opposition third threat as well, which is high. Again, what's going to be high with Cole Palmer, João Pedro, Liam Delap, Gittins, anyone and everyone that they've got in that attacking area of the field. They certainly have the talent to be able to score a lot of goals. 64 goals last year. I think they can improve on that with their new goal scoring talent. I think their manager and the coaching staff are going to be able to push the team to sort of replicate league success from last season, maybe even better at a little. I'm also expecting a few longer cup runs, obviously in Champions League now. They are in pursuit of silverware again this season, but all in all, I think they can get themselves back into the top 4, and I think they finish in 4th place again. The next team, it's going to be Crystal Palace. Last season had a fairly decent season, 12th in the Premier League. FA Cup winners, beating Man City in the final, and then also made the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup, and with that obviously qualified for Europe as well. So a positive outcome for them from last season. Squad additions, very minimal, no one notable in or out. They have managed to keep this guy Eze. He's their sort of star man, and he has been linked with a move away, as has Mark Gahey as well. So if they can keep those two, they should be in good stead for next season. But yeah, domestically well last year. Made a decent run in the EFL Cup. Obviously qualified for Europe through winning the FA Cup. They are unable to participate in the Europa League due to some ownership issues, but have instead been moved down to the Conference League, so that should fit them a little bit better anyway. They actually began very poorly last year. They had one win in the first 10 games, but after sort of mid-February, they earned 33 points from the next 19 matches, and that was the 5th best form over that period. They operate mostly in a 3-4-2-1 kind of setup, and they actually lead Europe's top leagues in tackles per game, recovering the second ball most per game as well, and obviously becoming defensively resilient during last season, conceding the 8th least amount of goals in the Premier League. They had the best away defense with 12 goals conceded in 14 games as well, and obviously a high press intensity. So as you can see there, 42% in the middle third, showcasing the fact that they like to have a high press into the opposition third. But in terms of the form, they ended on a high. They won 5 of the last 6 games, including a 5-0 win against Aston Villa. Highlighting obviously a few players, I said Eze and Gahey before, but Mateta, he's been a really, really good player for them last year. Premier League top scorer for the club with 14 goals, 17 in all competitions. Where is he on this list there? 14 goals, 2 assists. He ended the season as player of the year as well. Again, just touching on Eze, 16 goal contributions for Eze. Obviously scored that winning goal in the FA Cup final as well. Ismaila Sarr, 8 goals, 6 assists as well. So another player that contributed well for them. They both combined for 45 goal contributions during the season. And then again, just touching on another one, Munoz here played really, really well towards the end of last season. 9 contributions with 4 goals, 5 assists. He was a right wing back actually. He signed in January, and then he was named the FA Cup final man of the match as well. 2nd in the Premier League for tackles. Contributed defensively and offensively. He had a total of 14 contributions in the whole season last year. Ideally, they need to keep these main players that I've mentioned, Munoz, Eze, Gahey, Mateta, Sarr. They need to keep those guys, and they do need to get some signings in to help with the squad depth and sort of squad rotation with heavy fixture list for next season. Obviously, with the European games as well, and some players expected to leave. I do kind of expect it to be hard going back to back on what they did last year. Especially when this is a very it's a very difficult thing to win games when you can't really keep possession of the ball. They need that sort of core centre midfielder who can possess the ball and keep them have possession and do things create a little bit of magic for them in that midfield. But yeah, they have a huge gap in creativity and sort of defensive solidification. I think they may continue to be a top middle of the pack kind of team, but this gap here is what concerns me. These 2 guys here aren't the best guys to have in the midfield, especially when you've got this front 3 here. You need some creativity in that midfield. I believe the fixtures are going to pile up, obviously cause a bit of fatigue as well. And I think they fall into the lower half of the league, but I think they improve on their league position from last year. I think they finish in 11th this year. Everton is next. I actually have a really big prediction for Everton. A bit of a shock, if you like. Last season, 13th in the Premier League, 4th round of the FA Cup and the 5th round of the EFL Cup, so not too good of a season for Everton last year. 2 main additions for Everton. One of them was re-signing this Carlos Alcaraz here, and then adding as well to their strike force. They do have a significant amount of players who have left. Holgate, Begovic, Decore, Ashley Young, Mopé and Calvert-Lewin all depart in the club. So obviously that's quite a lot of a differential compared to who stayed and who's gone. Under Sean Dyche last year, they started off with under Sean Dyche, ended with just 1 win in 19 games, and obviously that prompted a managerial change. David Moyes took over in January, had a slight hiccup, and then Moyes went unbeaten in 6 games with 4 wins, 2 draws, and they actually climbed quite high up, away from relegation zone. In terms of their star players, this guy here, Idrissa Gana Gueye, really, really good player. Did a lot of good things for Everton last year. Not really the attacking side of the ball, but he sort of steadied the defence. Conceded 44 goals all season, 12 clean sheets, and obviously that was with some help from Jordan Pickford. 13 clean sheets for himself, 4th most in the league. And then you have a very strong defensive duo in Tarkowski and Branthwaite as well. Both of those, Tarkowski ranked 3rd for aerial duels, and Branthwaite had 41 interceptions. But in total, Everton, only 3 teams conceded less last year, so very, very good defensively. Did struggle to score goals. 42 goals scored. Didn't have a double-digit scorer. Beto there with 8, and Ndai with 9. Add in McNeil into that, 25 goal contributions for those 3 players. Again, strong defensively, couldn't convert into wins due to lack of attack, and had a league high 15 draws as well. So did struggle on the offensive side of the ball. As you can see here, protecting the league, keeping possession of the ball are some of their weaknesses. Last year, aerial duels, that's obviously from their defensive side, and their only sort of way of scoring was from some set pieces, really. They do need to sign some attackers in this transfer window. 29% goals from set pieces, open play goals 50%. So that's not really good enough. They do like their wing play, so that favours McNeil. But they do need to sign more players. Obviously, they've had a lot of departures, more departures than arrivals, and that's obviously going to hurt a lot. Last season, the winter schedule hurt Everton in particular. Obviously, as I said, with Sean Dyche and the managerial change to David Moyes. This season, squad depth is going to be significantly lower, so they need to add to that. Obviously, adding Barry, signed him for 24 million, but he only scored 11 goals last season, so it's not much of an improvement in that attacking area there. They need to get that percentage in the opposition third higher. And these wing players, they need to be more involved in the game, getting into attacking areas within the box. But yeah, defensively, not really concerned about their defense. They do lack firepower and creativity in the middle of the field. You've got 2 solid players here. Well, Garner, former United man. Gueye is that kind of player that plays in front of the defence. So he's out of the attacking conversation. Decore has left. So we're stuck with these 5 players here, where not many of those are going to be starting next season. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin has departed as well. Harrison isn't good enough, in my opinion, to start for Everton. Ndai is probably one of their best players who stayed on the team. But ultimately, I believe Everton haven't done enough to keep them from moving forward. And I think the lack of attack is going to hurt them a lot. So my bold prediction is actually Everton are going to be relegated, and I think they're going to finish in 19th place next season. So Fulham's up next. Fulham last year didn't do too badly, but they didn't do too well either. Finished 11th in the Premier League, quarter-final of the FA Cup, which is fairly decent, 3rd round of the EFL Cup, but didn't sort of make anything of that season. Squad news is virtually the same team, and the only change is Willian has departed. But there's a little bit of a concern for me within this team. We get to the goal department, where they're the goal. 54 goals for Fulham last year. Jimenez, where is he? Jimenez, 12 goals. Munoz, Muniz 8 goals, and then Iwobi 9 goals. So they actually contributed for 29 goals between the three, and that scored more than half of the team's goals. So 54 goals in total, 29 for Jimenez, Muniz, and Iwobi. That's a little bit concerning for me. A good positive here: assists for Robinson, 10 assists. He led all defenders for assists. But the team sort of emphasised their wide play, so they're very strong attacking down the wing, as you can see here as well. They set up in that 4-2-3-1 formation as well. Tete, Traore down one side with Robinson and Iwobi. Obviously, you add in Harry Wilson as well on this side. So they emphasise the wing plays quite a lot. As you can see, that's why the ratings for the wing players are higher than any other player. And that sort of worked out for them for the most part. They were able to create opportunities for Jimenez and Muniz in the middle. Obviously, Robinson getting up from that fullback position to provide assists as well. Defensively, sort of mediocre. They allowed 54 goals, and that's the joint 10th most goals in the league. So the only positive for the transaction side of the team, Tete and Kearney re-signing is the only positive thing to come from the off-season so far. No new additions. The team hasn't been improved for the players that, well, obviously Willian left. The team hasn't been improved too much. They did release 13 players, which has freed up a lot of room for budget for new players. But there's going to have to be a huge drastic change within this midfield and this attacking area. Obviously, Jimenez is playing fairly well. You need some creative spark. I don't think Emile Smith-Rowe has got it. But in my opinion, the team hasn't improved. You've got Robinson here, who's obviously very good with the Iwobi. And again, Jimenez and Muniz up front, who are very, very good. But the team hasn't improved, and I don't think they can better what they did last year after they've lost a lot of their squad depth. I think they're going to struggle to improve on last season's 11th place finish. And I actually believe they drop down into the relegation battle, but do stay clear before they finish in 5th. On to the second of the three promoted teams, so Leeds United. They finished last season in the Championship in first place, so automatic promotion for them. Didn't do too well. Domestic Cups, FA Cup into the third round, knocked out. EFL Cup, second round, knocked out. So, that probably allowed them more time and more, rest periods to do well in the league. As you can see, they're 95 goals, which is absolutely huge. But we'll move on to the squad transactions for now. The major one sort of leaving is Junior Firpo. He has left, and he had 14 contributions for them last year. So that will be a little bit of a miss, to be honest. And they have added Longstaff from Newcastle as well, which is a good addition for their midfield. Last season, as you can see here, a lot of strengths within the team. Won 29 games, drew 13, lost only 4. They scored a league high 95 goals. And they conceded just 30 goals as well, which is huge. Top English side across all 4 of the top English tiers in terms of goal differential. They averaged 2.4 goals scored at home and just 0.5 conceded per match. At home, 61 goals, unbeaten at Elland Road with a record of 18 wins, 4 draws. Moving down here, they had 10 players. They had 3 players with 10 plus goals. So they had obviously Dan James, they had Solomon, Perot here as well, and then, you can see there are a couple of 9s as well. So very, very good on the spreading the ball around kind of thing, getting more people involved in the goal scoring. Solomon, where is he up here? 12 assists as well as those 10 goals. So contributing from all over the field. Dan James as well, 9 assists. Ampadu converted from a central defender into the centre defensive mid area, and he sort of locked that centre of the field down. Kept the defence pretty quiet all year as well. On-field presence correlated with just 4 goals conceded within his minutes. So when he's on the field, he only conceded 4 goals, which is huge. Their manager also guided Leeds to 100 points. He was awarded multiple Manager of the Month honours and Championship Manager of the Season. He sort of implemented a high energy, obviously you can see their counter-attacks, finishing, creating a lot of chances, creating scoring chances, defending, protecting the lead. So all of these sort of contribute to what Fark actually implemented into the team. Possession, short passes, attacking down the sides and through the middle, sort of just aggressive play style. You can see here it's set up again. It's that normal formation that we're seeing quite a lot now. But he implemented the high energy, attacking minded play style with sort of disciplined defending. And that allowed them to have their historic season. So we'll just have a look here. You can see just how sort of attacking they were. Midfield third, 44% with 32% in the opposition third as well. So that accounted for 76% within this season is absolutely huge. Attacking down the wings, left side mainly with Dan James. He played very, very well for them last year. The additions and departures basically are like for like. Additions coming in key areas. So let's just look back to the midfield for Leeds. Let's have a look at the midfield for Leeds. So they've actually added in Longstaff into these two. So I don't know which one will be sitting out, but Longstaff is going to be a solid player to play with. Ampadu, I don't know why Ampadu's not on that lineup, but Ampadu and Longstaff will be very, very good to protect these back four here. They are in talks with Premier League proven players like their new signing Longstaff. He's an ideal option for their midfield to help adapt. They re-signed Byram, who's a wing back, obviously Firpo leaving, and then Dan James as well got the extension. That sort of solidifies this core unit for Leeds that helped them be successful last year. It's going to be very, very tough to score goals, so they do need to have reinforcements. Obviously, Perot here, he had a very good season last year. Did I say 19 goals? Yeah, 19 goals, 7 assists for Perot, but he is going to need help. As well as that, they're going to need a new goalkeeper to keep up with the Premier League standards. Historically, 54% of newly promoted teams stay in the league in their first season. That means nearly, 2 of the 3 teams that have been promoted will be likely to go back down. But despite a huge year last year, I think Leeds will be one of the teams that get relegated. I think they come up and I think they go straight back down. I think the recruitment that they've made hasn't really helped them become a solid Premier League team. And I actually believe they go back down. I believe they finish in 18th position. Champions Liverpool. Obviously, as I said, first in the Premier League. They got knocked out early in the FA Cup into the 4th round. The EFL Cup, they came runners-up to Newcastle, and then the Champions League, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals. It became more and more evident throughout the season that they were going to be prioritising the Premier League anyway. Especially when sort of it got to Christmas time where they were sort of, battling with Arsenal towards the top of the table. It became more and more evident that they were going to be taking the Premier League very, very seriously this year. And then they're going to be taking it very seriously next year as well, because they've added some really, really high-profile players. Wirtz, Frimpong, Kirkez and Marmasashvili all added in. So obviously a new backup goalkeeper, new fullbacks for Liverpool, and Wirtz as well coming in. They will replace obviously Trent, who went to Real Madrid, Kwanzaa, who's gone out on loan, I think, and Kelleher as well, who's gone to Bournemouth. So pretty like for like transfers, and obviously, like I said, high profile transfers to help with the push on for more and more Premier League titles. So they actually clinched the 20th Premier League title. They finished with 84 points with a plus 45 goal difference. They actually finished 10 points above Liverpool, above Arsenal, sorry. Led the league for 234 days, and that actually 26-game unbeaten streak for Liverpool. Conceded only 41 goals, third best in the league, and they scored a league high 86 goals. 25 wins, 9 draws, 4 losses in the league. They actually led the league in shots as well with 639. Obviously, we've got to mention this guy here, Salah. 29 goals, 18 assists, absolutely huge contributor for Liverpool. 47 goal involvements last year, earned player of the season. Luis Diaz as well, 13 goals, 5 assists, he added to that. Gakpo as well, 10 goals, 4 assists. Also adding more goals for Liverpool. Midfield created a really, really solid environment. Defensively solid as well, with Alisson managing to keep 17 clean sheets. So Arne Slot actually adapted to England very well and implemented a similar style to Jurgen Klopp, and obviously similar personnel as well. So Szoboszlai sort of dropped in a little bit here, and they had front three, obviously Diego Jota, rest in peace there. Really sad news about him passing, but he dropped into that position here, and Luis Diaz sort of played up front more for Liverpool. But it created a really, really solid all-round team. So rotating the squad as well, as Jurgen Klopp used to do, created a lot of stability within the team. Moving on to the prediction for next season. Obviously, last year, very, very strong at creating chances. Those individual skill players that I mentioned, Luis Diaz, Mo Salah, played a really big part. Szoboszlai played a really, really good part. And the possession football that they had while controlling the game was huge for them. So I expect that to stay the same. So additions have obviously vastly improved the team. You can see here their wing play, 35 and 37%. You're going to add in Wirtz into this now. If they can keep Luis Diaz as well, that'll be an extra bonus for them. Mo Salah on one side as well obviously helps. And then you've got your 74% in sort of the middle to opposition third. The key areas for Liverpool last year. Slot is obviously going to be looking to retain a Premier League title again. Certainly have the talent. And the coaching expertise as well. He did very, very well last year. I think he'll continue to do that this year. New signings need to adapt quickly. I know Wirtz had 2 assists in his debut where they beat Stoke 5-0. So he's sort of adapting well. And they need to sort of dominate from the start. Heavy fixture load coming up. But again, they're very, very used to it. They've been playing in 4 competitions now for a number of years. And, although Liverpool have one of the best squads in the world, I believe they will not retain their title. So this might be another bold prediction. I don't believe they retain the title. But I still think they have a successful campaign, within the Premier League and other cups. But I think ultimately they finish in second place behind another team I'm going to mention soon. Okay, I'm moving on to Manchester City. Obviously, previous champions in most recent years. Very, very good team all around. But last year had a little bit of a disappointing season. So they finished third in the Premier League. FA Cup, they came runners-up, which they've been really dominant in the FA Cup over the last few years. Unable to win that. Early exits in all the other competitions, really. EFL Cup, 4th round. The Champions League, they got knocked out in the playoff stage. The Club World Cup, knocked out in the playoff stage as well. So sort of with that prompted a few changes. Kevin De Bruyne has departed, long-time veteran for Man City, and Kyle Walker, also a long-time veteran for Man City, has also left. Obviously, last year they had Rodri out all season, so they've decided to give him a little bit of help, obviously, with De Bruyne leaving as well. So they've signed Reinders, Oit-Nouri as well for their fullback position, and Ryan Cherky as well, who's a really good playmaker. So they feel like they've done enough to replace Walker and De Bruyne so far in this transfer window. Obviously bringing in Marmoush late last year as well, in January transfer window. But this season loss, they ended a streak of 4 consecutive titles. They didn't get a title last year. Obviously, like I said, done very well in the FA Cup over previous years, and as well as winning the Premier League as well. They scored 72 goals in the league and conceded 44. So their goal difference was plus 28, which is fairly good. They had a really, really strong start within the season. Then they had a 13-game unbeaten run. Obviously ended with some key injuries in key areas of the field. So Rodri, he was the most notable one, only managed 2 games. And then that followed by just 1 win in 13. So they had 13 unbeaten, and then they had 1 win in the next 13 games, which is a really, really bad stretch of form. Suffered 4 home losing streak for the first time. 4 games losing at home, losing for the first time under Pep Guardiola. Haaland scored 22 goals. He did have a little bit of injuries. Obviously, 31 appearances. He would have obviously liked to have finished the whole season. The only the player to play the most games for them this year was Gvardiol, who has a really, really good season for them. But yeah, injury played season haunted their progress in the league. That was the main reason for them finishing third. In total, they had 33 separate injuries during the season, which is a vast amount. Looking forward to next season. They've always been the kind of team that sort of likes to dictate the play with these front 6 players. They like the possession kind of game in the opposition half, and normally Rodri here would have been holding the fort for this back line, but obviously he wasn't involved. So that suffered in their defense. They failed to stop other teams from creating chances and scoring goals. And that was a main reason for bringing in Reinders as well, and to bring in Cherki for this position here. So with that, this should look a lot more in shape. Obviously, added the key positions to help with their strengths and things like that, and to help the weaknesses more than anything. It's going to be a long season. Well, it has been a long season, obviously, with the Club World Cup as well. Fatigue may cause problems, but they do have a very, very deep squad. Another long season schedule as well with the Champions League and things like that. Personal improvements and players returning from injury should boost the team, so their depth shouldn't be too much of a problem. Reinforced Rodri with Reinders, and they've got a true left back to help with this. Obviously, as you can see, the left side 37% used. You add in Oit-Nuri as well in that area, and that's going to help whoever plays on this left side, mainly Doku, I think. And obviously that would mean Gvardiol can drop back into the middle of the field, into the centre-back position with his more natural centre-back role. And then obviously Cherki will be able to play around in this middle third to opposition third, trying to boost that from 78% maybe into the 80% with his playmaking abilities as well with De Bruyne left. But I do think Man City have a very, very improved team. Obviously Haaland being fully fit this year, hopefully he plays a full season. That's going to be a boost in itself. 22 goals is a down year for him. So I fully expect a bounce back from Man City. I believe they've got the team and the ability to win the league. My main concern for this, however, is going to be the financial fair play ruling that they have. So if they do end up with any points deductions, it's going to cost them the league, maybe the Champions League spot, maybe even a top half finish, depending on how harsh they are. But I think without financial fair play, I think Man City will win this league, and I think they finish first. Team Manchester United, obviously a very, 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 very disappointing season from them last year. They'll be disappointed in themselves, and everything about the team was pure disappointing. 15th finish in the Premier League, and obviously we were in the relegation battle for some part of that season as well. Early exit in the FA Cup in the 5th round, EFL Cup quarter final, so again not very good there compared to our standards anyway. Europa League came runners up. Really unlucky to lose that game. Community Shield also runs up as well. So you can see here, before we get into the squad news, you can see here we scored 44 goals in the Premier League in 38 games. That's just over 1 on average per game. You look at the Europa League, 15 games, 35 goals, that's over 2. So we kind of prioritised the Europa League towards the end of last season, obviously due to being really, really poor and disappointing in the Premier League. We prioritised the Europa League instead. So as you can see, the numbers were a lot higher, even the shots game, the team rating was a lot higher. Everything was a lot higher for the Europa League than the Premier League. We just chalked that halfway through. But with our struggles, we did bring in some players. So we brought in Cunha, Mbemo, and Leon to play at fullback as well. So we did well, I think. Well, we've done well so far, I think, for those players. Cunha, I think, is going to be a really, really good asset for the team. Scoring a lot of goals. I'll go into that in a second. Same as Mbemo. Our departures, really disappointed to see Lindelof go. I really like Lindelof. I think he's a really solid contributor, especially for the depth of the centre-back position. So Lindelof, Johnny Evans and Eriksson. We also have Anthony, Garnacho and Marcus Rashford on the chopping block on the transfer market, and Jadon Sancho as well. But Rashford is reportedly linked to play for Barcelona next year, which is ludicrous because he's terrible. But we'll go into last season, and obviously awful season. Finished 15th, 42 points, 11 wins last year. 11 wins, 9 draws, 18 losses. The lowest top flight finish since 1989, and the worst ever in Premier League era. We lost a club record 18 games. Struggled in all areas. So if you look here, 3 players here with 7 rating or higher. It's as simple as that. We just play poor. We sort of struggled to adapt to Ruben Amorim's philosophy and his tactics. During the early stage of the season, a lot of the damage was done, however, before he came to the club. So this is how he wanted to line up. He wanted to do 3 at the back, 4 in the middle, and then like an attacking trio who can sort of rotate. That maybe would have worked. Diallo got injured. Garnacho didn't play as well. But with this being implemented for next season, I think we can work on that during the off-season. The only bright spark, obviously, for us was Bruno Fernandes. We'll go back to here. Bruno Fernandes, he had... where is he? I can't find him. Bruno Fernandes. There he is. Bruno Fernandes at the top. 8 goals, 18 goal contributions, 8 goals, 10 assists. 19 goals in all competitions as well for him, and also the top assister. So he had 20 assists as well. So 39 goal contributions from him, and he was player of the season. Diallo had a little bit of a breakout season as well. 8 goals, 6 assists. As you can see, he only played 20 games due to injury. Lenny Yoro as well, he also stood out at centre-back. Again, he had a little bit of an injury as well. 12 appearances, but a very, very good contributor. So I think we've got the tools. I think we've got the area, the tools to go forward. But we've sort of made this new philosophy, obviously attacking down the left. That was the play call after Diallo got injured. So we need Mbemo and Cunha to sort of get the ball rolling and just jump straight into the team. We do need, however, a true number 9. I don't think Højlund has got what it takes to be our main striker. But again, with Cunha and Mbemo, I think they can sort of play in that attacking 3 with Diallo. All 3 of them could sort of rotate into that centre forward position and get this opposition third percentage higher. Obviously, middle of the third, 41%, which is one of the high league. Bruno sort of pulling the strings and things like that. Again, attack on the left side, 42%, which is really, really high. I expect this to sort of even out across the season. We need to solidify this defence. We can't be having the ball in our own third at 31%. That's way too high. We need to be a little bit more safer, a little bit more cautious. We faced the most shots in the league last year, and obviously conceded from very crucial and stupid errors, which led to goals for our opponents. But Ruben Amorim, he has had time now. He's implemented a plan into the club, and I think Cunha actually is going to be really, really good for us, and Mbemo as well. It's improved the team a lot, just those 2 names. I think last season was an anomalous result. I don't think it'll happen again. I think Amorim has shaped this team into like a winning team. He's got the tools that he wants and the tools that he thinks are going to succeed. So yeah, I think he shapes this team back into a top half of the league team. But obviously a lack of striker goals. Højlund, how many did he have last year? Højlund, 4 goals. So that's obviously not good. So a lack of a main number 9 striker may haunt United, but I think obviously, like I keep saying, Diallo, Cunha and Mbemo, they can also contribute to goals. So I predict a more successful season than last year, but I do think we will fall short of the top 6 again, but I think we finish in 8th position. Newcastle, very successful season last year. Premier League finishing in 5th position, securing we had 5 Champions League spots last year, so securing the final Champions League spot for next year, for the upcoming season. FA Cup knocked out in the 5th round, but they did win silverware. They were the EFL Cup winners, beating Liverpool in the final. That ended a trophy drought of 70 years, which is absolutely huge. Brought in Alanga to play on the wing. Alanga, very, very good player from last season for Nottingham Forest. They have had Callum Wilson depart, Kelly depart, and Longstaff depart. But again, those 3 players were sort of on the rotational side of the team anyway. So not too much to worry about in terms of departures. Maybe adding a few players for squad depth is necessary. But when ending the 70-year domestic trophy drought, scored 68 goals last year, which is fairly high. They implemented like a high press strategy. It worked well for them. 88 goals in all competitions. 68 in the Premier League. Their high press tended to help the defense a lot. Having 6 players in this position, obviously Livramento, Hall, whoever played in the full positions also run up and down these wings, making this 6 into an 8 a lot of the time. Maybe Tonali dropped in to make it a 7, but the high press helped the defense. They had the 4th best goals scored to conceded ratio, with one goal on average conceded per game. Nick Pope, obviously a really, really good player, 81.6% save rate and conceded 43 goals, which is really, really good. 7th lowest in the league. Obviously on attack, there's only one guy, and that's Isak. He obviously was their main guy. 23 goals, 6 assists. The Newcastle midfield controlled the games, and that obviously allowed them to be able to beat teams like Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea. So Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, obviously getting involved in the goal scoring contributions as well, but being those holding sort of midfielder positions. Obviously Tonali there as well, holding the ball and just being pure playmakers within this team. Had a 9-game unbeaten run in the middle of the season. That obviously helped them reach the top 5 for last year, and obviously win that trophy for the first time in 70 years. So they had a really, really strong attack here. Adding in Alanga for Murphy there is obviously a huge improvement on the team. And obviously they have a solid core foundation, and obviously Alanga helping that wide position. It's going to add creativity to this high press that they have. In terms of their strengths, finishing, obviously Isak attacking down the wings. Both sides were very, very good last year. When you look at the 2 wingers that they had, Jacob Murphy, 8 goals, 12 assists, and then Anthony Gordon, 6 goals, 5 assists. So getting a lot of goal contributions from the wide areas. Adding in Alanga is obviously going to help that. They had a consistent first 11 as well, which is uncommon in the league this year. A lot of changes within teams. They had a consistent first 11, obviously that created that bond and that core for this high press that I keep mentioning. They have been linked with Wissa. He might be a good added goal scoring threat for them, a bit of help for Isak in the goal scoring area, and a little bit of depth as well with Wilson leaving. They had a period where they struggled last season with injuries. Like I said, that was more in their depth area. But they did manage to navigate through that quite well. Ideally, they would like to add a few players for depth to prevent it happening again, especially with an exciting Champions League campaign coming up as well. But as you can see, we talked about that middle of the field again, 41% for the middle third. A lot of that was those three midfielders. making this middle to opposition third 71% of the game played for them. Again, that high press coming up and forward from both sides, 36%, 38% on the wide areas. So they sort of implemented that well, and they did really, really well last season. So Eddie Howe, he's done extremely well in managing the team. Tactically, has done really well with the players he's got as well. I expect them to be a stronger contender again, stronger than last year. I think they will do well in the Champions League. I think they'll get through the group. I think domestic cup-wise as well, I think they'll do very well as well. Again, they may even prioritise the EFL Cup, trying to go back-to-back as well. And I do think they try and prioritise Champions League spots again for next season. And I do actually think they get it. So I'm going to expect them to finish back-to-back seasons in 5th place. Nottingham Forest. This is a difficult one because it's really hard to be happy with how they finished, but it's really, really hard to be disappointed with how they finished as well. They finished 7th in the Premier League. I'll get back into that again in a minute. FA Cup semi-finals, which is fairly good. AFL Cup second round, which obviously isn't very good. Squad news: Elanga has departed. He was a big contributor for them last year, but they do have Igor Jesus from Botafogo as well coming in to try and fill that void. So they kind of started with a defensive approach last year. In the Premier League, they conceded only 38 goals, so one a game. And that actually ranked as the 4th best ratio in the division. The whole back line and cells improved from 2023 to 2024, and they actually had a total of 13 clean sheets. So this back line here played very, very well defensively. Frequently used this formation, obviously, as we've been seeing a lot in the league anyway. A solid mid-block, making this a really, really difficult 6 to break down. Shifting into a back 5 on occasion as well, with Yates coming in here. Obviously Elanga, Hudson-Odoi coming back as well in those full-back positions. And then it shifted into, obviously you've got an attacking 6 here. Aina and Williams coming forward to make it an 8 on attack as well. So this adaptability, it sort of powered their resilience in defence and offence as well. So despite being a defensive set-up team, they only averaged 39% of possession as well. They managed to score an 8th most, 58 goals in the season in the Premier League. Just going to offensive side there. 58 goals in the league. That was the 8th most as well. So 20 of those came from Chris Wood. Very, very good, obviously, contributor for goal scoring. He was up there for the Golden Boot as well for most of the season. A further 15 goal contributions from Morgan Gibbs-White as well, who has been linked away. So hopefully they can keep him. They took the lead in 17 games last year and dropped very, very few points once scored. So showcasing that the low block and game management sees out wins. You'll probably see it here. Their sort of strengths and things like that, and the way they like to play was very, very aggressive. And again, with a low block, playing with width, with the fullbacks and things coming forward. And again, crosses coming into the box for Chris Wood. So that was their sort of their play style, and it worked very, very well for them. As you can see, obviously a huge loss is going to be Elanga, with 17 goal contributions for him, and obviously if Morgan Gibbs-White leaves, it might be curtains for them. But they were in the top 3 for a majority of the season last year as well, so they were fighting for a Champions League position. That's why I said before, it's hard to be disappointed with a 7th place finish, considering the year before they were in the relegation battle. So for them to get European football this year is a win, but them not to get Champions League football with them being in the top 3 for so long is obviously very disappointing. But I think it's a good thing. I think they will do better in the lower European competition. But heading into the season, Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be the huge thing to look for within the season, within the off season. Potentially even for Spurs or Man City, he's a crucial part of the team, and obviously they must prevent him from leaving at all costs. They already lost a key member in Elanga. They've been linked with Jacob Ramsey. He'll be a solid signing to play in that number 10 role if Morgan Gibbs-White does leave. They signed Igor Jesus to try and cover Elanga. He's a young attacker, played really, really well in the Club World Cup, scoring 2 goals. He can help replace Elanga. But again, with this sort of low block, makes that own third and midfield third the most action-packed zones for them, with 72% in the own third, in the own third, and the middle third, which again, it worked well for them. Doesn't work for everyone, but it worked well for them. Very, very difficult to break down. And then obviously, as you can see here, set pieces and counter-attack goals contributing for 40% of their goals. Wing play as well, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Nico Williams on the left side, and then obviously Alanga and Aina on the right side, which should be now Igor Jesus. So yeah, it worked well for them last year. I think they can sort of replicate that again. Solid defence and obviously, again, solid low defensive block. They may have another successful campaign if their attack can hold together and sort of find goals. If Chris Wood can keep up the goal scoring, and if he finds some other contributors in Gibbs White, Igor Jesus, Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think they can do well this year. They need to find that creative spark with Alanga gone as well. But I think with the defence being so disciplined, so compact, I can see them having another really, really good season, a successful season for them again. Maybe a small drop-off as they finished 7th from last year. I think they do drop into the lower end of the top half of the league, but I do think they will finish. Okay, so the third of the 3 newcomers and the newly promoted teams, Sunderland, finished 4th in the Championship last year. Obviously won the playoffs to get into the Premier League. FA Cup 3rd round finish and the EFL Cup 1st round finish, so not very good domestically. We'll get into my opinion in a minute. Squad news: they've made a bit of a splash in the off season. They signed Adingra from Brighton. They signed Diarra from Strasbourg, who cost 30 million, and they got the former young French talent Lefebvre, really, really good in the under-21s European competition for France a couple of years ago. Watson and Bellingham have departed. Fourth we finish. 76 points, 21 wins, 13 draws, 12 losses, which was 20 points up from the season before, which is a really, really good turnaround. They were in the relegation battle in 2023 and obviously now promoted to the Premier League in 2024. Strong defensively, conceded 44 goals, which is less than 1 a game, which is among the division's best. The manager implemented this formation. Again, we're seeing this quite a lot, but it didn't look like this a lot either. They kind of played it as a 4-2-3, so they had Roberts drop in there, and these 3 kind of played as 3 attackers. So they had 4-3-3 system on the ball, and that shifted into a 4-4-2 kind of thing at the back. On defence, which was the main reason for their low goals conceded. So that kind of made that you'd say Lefebvre dropped in there, Roberts dropped in there, and you've got a back 8, a low block. So defensively solid, a fairly decent attack as well. 58 goals scored on attack, which is the 8th best. 63 goals in total. Sorry, where have I got 58 from? 68 goals in total in the Championship, 8th best. Strong at home as well. That form helped them return to the Premier League after 8 years. So they got a very young team, often played players that were under 25 years old. Joe Bellingham has departed. Not really a contributor in terms of goal scoring, in getting the goal scoring contributions, only 7 for him. But you can see a lot of goals coming from a lot of different players. And it kind of went that way for majority of the season. They kind of shared the ball around, created a lot of scoring chances and finished those scoring chances as well. The one thing that I don't like about this team is the weakness, keeping possession of the ball. They weren't good at that. They're because obviously they went into that back 8 on defense and they kind of went to the 4-3-3 on attack. It kind of left Joe Bellingham and maybe Lefebvre in that midfield area trying to create something, and it didn't happen that often. Another thing that I didn't really like was the fact they come back from losing possessions a lot. In the Premier League, you can't be doing that. If you go behind, it's very, very difficult to come back from those situations. So I think they're actually going to struggle to create opportunities in the Premier League. Their top goal scorer from last year had 13 goals. And in comparison, Liam Delap he had 12 goals for Ipswich, and they got relegated again. So the loss of Bellingham is going to be huge. Obviously, you can see here the action zone, 42%. I'm gonna put that down to them having a 4-2-3 on attack and then a 4-4-2 on defense. So majority of this is going to be probably defensive side, but 42% in the middle of the field, 29 either side. Bellingham was voted the young player of the year for last season, and he was included in the EFL team of the year. So having him as a loss, departing to Dortmund is going to be a huge loss for them. I think inexperience for the team could be a problem with so many younger players. Obviously, like I said, playing a lot of players under 25 years old. They did sign Lefay on a permanent transfer to help replace Bellingham. Maybe he gets that free role in the middle of the field to sort of try and solidify the creativity of the team. But so far they have spent 107 million pounds in new players so far. So that's good for depth, obviously, and good squad rotation to help adapt to the new season. They ideally need this to go up from 29% into the 30s. And as I mentioned before, their top goal scorer from last year had 13 goals. They did sign a Dingra, which he's a wide player, so maybe he can, with Lefay dropping back into this midfield, maybe Adingra will get the nod on one of the wings, and Diarra as well. Maybe he finds a way into the attacking area of the field as well. But yeah, I think Sunderland's 76 points last season is a low total for the Championship. I think they're going to struggle to earn points in the Premier League. I don't expect them to do well. Historically, as I mentioned, for one of the, I think it's Burnley, historically 2 out of the 3 newly promoted teams will drop straight back down. I believe Sunderland will finish dead last and move back to the Championship. Nothing against them. I do wish them all the best. I hope they do well. I hope they prove me wrong. But yeah, I don't think they've got the creativity, all the attacking play style, things like that, to be able to beat some of these teams. Moving on to the last few teams in the league, we're down to Tottenham Hotspur. Similar to Man United, disappointing season last year, finishing 17th in the Premier League, 4th round exit in the FA Cup, EFL Cup semi-finalists, and then winners of the Europa League. So domestically, in their contest, doing fairly well with the semi-finals and winning the Europa League as well. But Premier League form was not on. A few decent squad transactions. Tell has signed on a permanent deal from Bayern Munich. Ganso has also joined from a Brazilian club, and Kudus as well from West Ham has now signed. Højbjerg and Rugelon as well has left. So some decent acquisitions in the off-season so far. But in terms of their Premier League campaign last year, worst ever league finish. Ended up putting all focus onto the Europa League towards the end. Obviously, winning that means they can get into European football. They actually went 12 games in the league without a clean sheet as well. On the season, 11 wins, 5 draws, 22 losses, which is drastic. They did manage to score 64 goals. 64 goals in the league, which is 8th most, so fairly well on offense. But they conceded the 15th most goals to opposing teams. And that's obviously the main reason for their poor league position. They struggled with team consistency as well. A lot of injuries over the course of the season, as you can see. Son, James Maddison not playing a full season. Solanke missing time as well. Romero missing time. Brennan Johnson missing time. A lot of players in their roster missing some time over the period of the season. Pedro Porro was their highest minutes collector, if you like. He played the most minutes for them within the Premier League. But Brennan Johnson turned out to be their talisman last season. 11 goals, 3 assists in the Premier League, but finished with 18 goals and 7 assists in all competitions. And obviously his winner in Bilbao earned Player of the Season as well, as they were crowned Europa League champions. But Ange, he implemented an attack-first mentality and obviously led to a decent amount of goals. You can see here, 11 for Johnson, 9 for Solanke, 9 for Maddison, 7 for Kulusevski, 7 for Son. So these sort of 5 players here had a vast amount of the goal contributions for the team. But obviously that also left them very, very vulnerable at the back. So as I said, you got these front 3 here with Maddison and Kulusevski as well, making that an attacking 5, left them very short at the back. So yeah, again, it left them pretty slim and conceded the 5th most goals to as well. They have now, however, moved on from their manager. And as you can see here, the weakness was a lot of defensive areas. So defending against skillful players, protecting the lead, stopping opponents from creating chances, fouls, errors, dual set pieces, counter attacks, long shots, everything sort of on the defensive side was a weakness last year. And obviously the strengths being more attacking attributes for the team. But we have Thomas Frank at the helm now, and he sort of implemented a balance kind of structure across the team for Brentford last year, and that's a main reason why Brentford were in the top half of the season, top half of the league last year. So if he implements that for Spurs, that'll be a good thing. So for his philosophy, he's looking at Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously, for that sort of attacking midfielder role, he would fit into that role for him. Obviously, adding Kudus as well adds, and Antal as well, adds the creativity side and the delivery for Solanke as well. Obviously, added a few players for depth and trying to solidify the defence that was a little bit leaky last year. But as you can see, the 2 wing plays again were quite strong with Brennan Johnson and Tell or Kulusevski, whoever played on one side. You now add in Kudus. This could go up based on whichever side he plays. And then again, with those attacking 5, it kind of made that very difficult to play out of in the middle third into the opposition third, with all 3 zones being fairly even in the 30s. So with the creativity of Kudus, hopefully he can get that opposition third into the higher side of the percentages. But I do think this is an improved team, and obviously similar to Man United last year, I don't think them finishing in 17th is going to be a regular occurrence. I think it was anomalous. You have to think about their additions that they've brought in, the new play styles from a new manager. Obviously that was very successful for Brentford last year. I think a target to return into consistent European qualification is going to be their goal, and I think it looks manageable. So under Thomas Frank, I'm going to expect them to be in and around the European places, and I expect them to finish in 7th place this year. Haven't really done too much in terms of additions to the team, bringing in Todibo and Doof. Kudus, Ings, Zuma, Cresswell, Fabianski and Sofal all depart the club. So obviously nowhere near enough players coming into the club compared to players coming out of the club. They definitely need to sort that out to keep their squad depth and things like that. Otherwise, they're going to get cooked. So obviously, as you can see there, 46 goals for West Ham during the season. That's the 6th least amount of goals in the league. Conceded the 5th most goals as well. So defensively and offensively, very poor. West Ham had 2 managers last year. Potter being the current, he will start the season as their manager as well. He had the job of saving West Ham from relegation and stabilising the club, but he only had 5 wins in 19 games in charge. It would have been a lot less if they didn't have Jared Bowen. Jared Bowen, top goal scorer, 13 Premier League goals, led the team with 10 assists as well. He capped the season with a run of 8 games with a goal contribution to finish the season last year. Wan-Bissaka as well signed at the beginning of last year. He played every single minute for West Ham. Played all games, 7 goal contributions as well. He also led the team in interceptions and in tackles as well. But in terms of the team as a whole, they struggled on both ends of the pitch. They struggled with scoring goals, struggled with form, struggled with injuries, struggled with stopping opponents having chances. Obviously, you can see the weaknesses. A lot of those are defending, set pieces, counter-attacks, through balls, long shots, fouls, creating chances, finishing their own chances. So a lot of that's the reason why they didn't do too well last year. Add into that, they had no out-and-out striker. Obviously, Antonio didn't play due to his injury from the car crash. So Jared Bowen was forced to move up into the forward position, which left them blank on one side, really, with Kudus on one side, and then Somerville playing on the other side. But in terms of the team as a whole, a complete overhaul heading into this season. They moved on from a lot of aging players, but they haven't yet replaced those players with new additions, and that could obviously cause a little bit of fatigue. They have been linked with numerous players, but nothing solid happened so far. Need to get those signings relatively fast to create the squad depth and the rotation for next season. Main position they need to get used to is obviously that striker position. Using Jared Bowen in the striker area last year worked out fairly well, but it's not sustainable for through the new season. They need him on the wing. As you can see, 40% of their play coming through the right hand side, which is Jared Bowen's side. Even when he was playing as the striker, he was drifting over to this right hand side position. And that's mainly why their opposition third percentage in terms of their possession is only at 26%. This needs to be way up into the 35 plus if possible. So getting an out-and-out striker will increase that rather than have their own third having a lot of the ball. They have signed Diouf to try and solidify their centre-back position. But again, it remains to be seen how he will perform in a new league. But I believe, with the losses that the squad have, they've lost a lot of their defensive players. Obviously, Zuma, Sofal, Cresswell as well, all leaving. And the fact they haven't managed to add any new reinforcements, I believe they're going to be unprepared for the season. They haven't improved their team into a top half fighting team, and with that I don't think they get back into the top half of the league this year. But instead I actually think they find themselves in a relegation battle, but they will finish clear, and I believe they finish in 16th place. So the final team of this breakdown and of the league that I haven't yet talked about is Wolverhampton Wanderers. Poor season for them again last year, 16th in the Premier League, so just managed to stay in the Premier League. 5th round of the FA Cup and 3rd round of the EFL Cup, so early exits in both domestic competitions. In terms of their squad news, they've got a lot of outgoings compared to new acquisitions. So they've re-signed Larson from his loan deal permanently, and they've signed Lopez as well. But a big name in Cunha, gone to Man United. Oit Nuri as well, going to Man City. Sarabia and Semedo also being released from their contracts. The poor form started early on in the league, so no wins in the first 10 league games, and then they earned 9 points from 16 matches to start the season. They were bottom placed at Christmas, so put that into perspective. Bottom place at Christmas, and managing to stay clear. So this season could have been the complete flip side if the season started at Christmas time. Manager was replaced while Wolves were 19th with 4 points from safety. Secured 32 points from the final 18 games, secured in safety with 5 rounds left to spare, including a 6-game win streak to end the year. They moved on from the previous manager's sort of tactics, and they moved to a more solidified formation which emphasised stability. within the backline and the midfield. So obviously, as you can see here, they played a 5 at the back. So they had a 5 at the back, 2 solid centre midfielders to make this a solid 7 block here in their defensive area. And then obviously on attack, they moved up into the attacking areas to make this a solid 5 on attack. That ended up with them scoring a club record 54 goals. Contributions coming from sort of all angles. Cunha, Larson, Oitnuri, Andre, Bellegarde, all getting on the action. Obviously, as you can see here, we'll go to offensive. 15 goals, 6 assists from Cunha. Larson, 14 goals, 4 assists. Oitnuri, 4 goals, 7 assists. Bellegarde as well, 2 goals, 7 assists. So coming from sort of all angles for them on offense. But again, they may struggle heading into the new season, especially with the players that they have let go. We're just looking at 2 there. Cunha with 21 and Oitnuri, where's he gone? There with 11. So that's 32 contributions just from 2 players leaving. So with that, their season obviously started very, very bad, ended very well. So main reason for their strength being coming back from a losing position. But when you look at the upcoming season, they may struggle without replacements for key players like Cunha and Oitnuri. Obviously, Larson played very, very well from last year, so he could potentially replace Cunha anyway. This new guy that they've got, Lopez, he should bring a lot of energy and creativity from the wide areas. Add in John Arias as well, who's been heavily linked with from Fluminense. He should also bring energy and creativity into that midfield. So if we just actually look back onto their formation, obviously Cunha left a huge void. When you look back at the team and how they line up, Cunha playing here, he plays that sort of free role where he can go left, right, or the middle. With him missing, playing Lopez or John Arias, that could fill the void left by Cunha. So that is a good few acquisitions there for Wolves. But they do need a huge improvement on defence. As I said before, playing that sort of low block with a solidified midfield into their defence means that their total action zones were own third and middle third at 74%, meaning the opposition third is on 26%, which is obviously very, very low. So while they need improvement on defence, which they conceded the 4th most league goals last season, no additions, no improvements, just departures in this area is going to be a huge problem. Even in that low block, a stacked sort of back 5 or 7 when defending, they're still going to concede goals in mass numbers unless they fix issues with signings. Obviously, Oitnuri as well has gone from this left-hand side, so their attack side will probably even out to more 35% with the right-hand side. As of right now, I don't believe they make it into the Premier League. I don't believe they make it to stay in the Premier League, I should say. I actually like their attacking signings. I think they've done very well in John Arias if he comes, re-signing Larson and Lopez as well. But I don't think they can outscore every team to make it worthwhile. They've got huge issues on defence, and I believe they're going to be in a heavy relegation battle all season before just saving themselves with a 17th place. Every single team broken down. I've deep dived into every team, their strategies from last year, strategies for the new season, new signings, departures, some stats on goals, stats on defences, usage areas, everything you can possibly need for predicting the Premier League. I've given my predictions on where I think their placements will be. Obviously, you can go back to this anytime during the season or prior to the season, after the season. It is going to be heavily time-stamped, so if you check the description, it will say the team name. You click the team name and it'll take you straight to that certain breakdown. If you need to obviously listen back to a certain few points that I made or things like that. But yeah, this was a very, very long episode, so I appreciate everyone for listening all the way through. But again, click back on through the timestamps if you need to listen to any team in particular. Over the next coming weeks, I'm going to be dropping my fantasy football episodes where I break down the best players and things like that for your fantasy season, which starts in a few weeks. So you need to follow me on Twitter to keep updated with that. I'll be participating in the fan team fantasy season got long game, which has a £175,000 prize pool, 5 max entries. So I am going to be doing a giveaway for this soon as well. So keep an eye for the giveaway. I'll be giving away 5 entries to 5 different people. And yeah, as I said, fantasy selections will be next week's episode. So I'll be doing a full solid episode on every sort of area within fantasy football, giving my strategies and things like that to everyone. In the meantime, you can check my retweets and things, and Ballystock Sports, he dropped a great thread on his favourite strategies and things like that and how he likes to play. As you can see there, he previously came 1st, 2nd and 13th on Fan Team. So, you need to take a listen or take a read of his tips and strategies there. And then also, if you scroll down a little bit more, Caesar as well posted his same thing again. He's been successful in fantasy. He did his favourite strategies and things like that as well. So go and give those a read and try and implement them into your teams. And obviously take a listen for next week's episode, where I will be breaking down my fantasy selections, my favourite players, who I'm going to be captaining, all my favourite strategies and everything like that, everything for the fan team fantasy game. So that's me signed out for this episode. Appreciate everyone for listening. Drop me a follow, like, subscribe, share, everything. Try and get this as far out as possible. The more people that listen to this, and the more people I can help win money during the season in fantasy or betting or predictions or anything like that. So I appreciate you all for listening, and I'll be back next week for the fantasy football episode. Catch you later.